Let's move on to another city. Let's move on to Philadelphia. So when Arizona was, for lack of a better word, going full Trump, right? They were going every possible way they could hate on Latinos. They were doing it in every legal way. Philly actually decided to go the opposite direction, which is really interesting. So talks about Philadelphia here.
Yeah, so at the same time that around the same time that Arizona had passed its restrictive law, which in my view encouraged racial profiling of people who were not white, right?
Yeah.
Because law enforcement was required to ask people about their immigration status and just put a whole host of restrictions on immigrants' movement and opportunities that they could have. Yes, the mayor of Philadelphia, Michael Nutter, around the same time, hosted a huge party along the Benjamin Franklin Parkway under the flags of, many, many different nations representing nations that had some presence in the city of Philadelphia. And he said, quite frankly, in the book that I wrote, he said, that was our response to the insanity in Arizona. And he recognized, like a lot of big city mayors across the country, that immigrants are an asset, especially among places where the population is dwindling and the population is quite old. Immigrants are more likely to bring in a youthful population and a workforce, and also to contribute in ways that create a kind of vitality in many neighborhoods that had been disenfranchised and where there had been an enormous amount of disinvestment. And in these places where immigrants, like in the city of Philadelphia, the city, along with some nonprofits there, worked really hard to provide assistance to immigrant entrepreneurs. And what we saw as a result was neighborhoods becoming safer, more vital, more commercial investment, and people beginning to move back into these places. And this is a story that's repeated across the country.
Well, let's move down to Mississippi. So what's really interesting down there is you actually had a really cool alliance between African Americans and Latinos that happened in Mississippi. Tell us about it.
Yes, right. I mean, one of the narratives that you hear over and over again is that, it's a zero-sum game in our economy, and when immigrants win, African Americans lose. And what that really did was create a kind of false enemy, right? It redirected that. Here we saw wages dropping and jobs being cut and opportunities declining. And it's really easy to do, as some people say, point to Latinos and say, okay, that's your problem there. It's those people there. When really the problem is so much bigger and invisible, which is, corporations, keeping wages low and bringing in immigrants and oftentimes recruiting immigrants and exploiting them because they can, right?
Yeah.
And so what happened it's a very interesting story about Mississippi in that, in the 2000s, soon after Arizona, there were several states in the South that instituted or proposed these copycat laws that were very similar to Arizona, restricting opportunities for immigrants, fining landlords and employers who hired immigrants, or especially people who were undocumented. And Mississippi, which you could argue is probably the most conservative of all the southern states, went in the opposite direction. And the reason they did is because African Americans very early on contributed their voices, their very sophisticated voices, and the power that they had come to have over decades within the legislature to fighting these bills. And the way that they talked about these issues, along with union representatives and people in the community who were fighting for a fairer wage for people, was exactly to say that we are more powerful together, we have more in common, and we should fight all of these battles together against the forces that are, drawing on racism and xenophobia. And this has been an extremely successful coalition, not without enormous challenges in the state of Mississippi, but they have become a force to be reckoned with. And as a result of these alliances that were created, Mississippi, the legislature defeated anti-immigration bills to a lot of people's surprise.
We're talking again to Susan E. Eaton, author of the new book, Integration Nation. Well, so Susan, both you and I live in Boston up here in New England. Let's bring up some New England love here. Talk about Boston and an organization called Found in Translation.
Oh, yeah, this is a wonderful, wonderful organization. So in the early 2000s, a young woman, just fresh out of college at Regis College, was working as a social worker. Her name is Maria Vertkin, and her job was basically to work with women who needed services, who had been homeless or who were earning extremely low incomes and oftentimes had children. And Maria, when she was working with the women, her job was to match them up with services, but what she kept seeing was their assets. She kept meeting with women who were immigrants, who were bilingual, so who spoke at least 2 languages, and who were really proficient at a kind of cultural navigation that kind of had these skills that few people really possess. And so she kept thinking, how can I, not just, feel sorry for these women and give them, services? How can we tap into what they have for benefit for everybody? And she started doing research on jobs, and what she realized was that translators within the healthcare field, this was a job that was going to be, there was going to be an increasing need for this job for years to come, at a time when many other jobs where you can enter into the middle class, those things were declining. And so she decided to match those 2 things up, the skills of the women that she was meeting in her job and the very clear need within the economy for interpreters. So she started a program called Found in Translation, and it provides free education and certification in medical interpreting. And this is a field that allows women to get out of poverty. They can begin to earn a wage of $30 to sometimes $50 an hour for their work. And oftentimes these were women who were on government assistance or who were earning very low wages, which were not livable wages. And this reputation has soared among the medical community, and many of doctors and nurses and community healthcare providers who I spoke with said that they really seek out the Found in Translation translators, not just because of their language skills, but because of their adeptness at a kind of cultural navigation and allowing patients to have an amplified voice and maintain their dignity in very vulnerable situations.